This is Support is Sexy, episode 159, with Denise Harris, founder and CEO of Everything Emily and Real Life Leadership. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am so happy to have you here because it just would not be the same without you. And listen, I truly mean it when I say that. I am so grateful. I'm just filled with gratitude today. Well, I'm filled with gratitude always, but truly filled with gratitude today and really grateful for all of you being here, whether it's your first time listening and you're just feeling it out, checking it out to see what it's all about, or you've been coming since the beginning, since the middle, whenever you've been here. I'm so excited to have you here. Truly grateful. Thank you so much. I know we're all limited on time, so I don't take for granted the amount of time that you all spend with me here on the podcast. So thank you. And I think our guest today sort of has me in a space of gratitude. One, because she's from my neighborhood where I grew up in Lakeview, even though we didn't know each other, but also because she's just lovely and giving and made me feel really good about the work that I'm doing with the podcast. We don't do it necessarily for the praise, but it's nice to be affirmed, and we all want to be affirmed. Her name is Denise Harris, and she is the founder and CEO of Everything Emily, which is her coaching company, and also Real Life Leadership, which is her executive training company. And in this episode, Denise really dives into a lot of great things that we all need to consider about what's stopping us, about our inner critic, which we all talk about, or we all know about at least, imposter syndrome, a lot of these things that hold us back whether we're aware of it or not. And she has a program that helps her clients do it, but in this episode, she gives us great advice about that. So some of the things that you'll learn from Denise today: how to pay attention to the signs and be self-aware enough to know when you're on the right track. Also, getting over the misconception that it has to be hard before you can be happy. I think that's a great one to remember. The power of masterminds and how they work. As a go-getter, what happens when you stop? Very important to consider that. How to identify what gets in the way. How to quiet that inner critic in your head that tries to keep you safe and comfortable. Also, how to feel the fear and do it anyway. 3 important ways Denise says to help you get unstuck. What stops many of us from moving forward. And the importance of celebrating the wins along the way. I always say celebrate the small wins all along the way. So this is a great episode with Denise, inspirational. I hope you love it. In fact, I'm sure that you will. So without further ado, Denise Harris. So Denise, thank you so much for being here for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Elayne. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Wow, what a great question that is. I fell in love with entrepreneurship at a young age, but I didn't really get into being an entrepreneur until I was at the adult stage already, because I took a very traditional path, graduated from college, went straight into my career, got into some leadership positions and worked in corporate for quite some time. And then only after I realizing that there was so much more out there and there was something that was missing that I really wanted to do, start my own business, did I get into entrepreneurship. But it's actually in my blood.
It's in your blood. Now, where did you grow up?
Yeah. I grew up in West Hempstead, Long Island.
Oh my gosh, so did I.
In West Hempstead?
Yeah, I grew up in Lakeview.
What?
Did you?
That's where I grew up.
I did not.
I swear to you, I lived right off of White Star Avenue on Mary Ann Lane. And that's, my parents bought that house, I think, in the early 70s. And that's where I was raised.
Oh my gosh, I grew up off Champlain. Do you know Champlain Avenue? I think it was Avenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
God. You're a Long
Yeah,
Island girl. That's
that's
amazing.
right. But that's pretty amazing that you grew up off of Champlain and Cayuga, I think,
Yeah.
all
That is
that
so
area.
funny.
Sure.
I rarely meet people
Mhm.
from Lakeview, maybe Hempstead and that. So anyway, sorry to interrupt your story. I got excited.
Me too.
So what was a young Denise like growing up in Lakeview?
Wow. You know what? I was very ambitious, very, very goal oriented. I loved being around my family, but I was somebody that even at a young age, I was always looking forward. Um, I liked being in charge of things, and I had like this inherent leadership, capacity in me, and I was very encouraged by it, by my family, to be a leader and to take charge and to take ownership, and so that's just was at a young age, and I was an avid reader. I loved books. I was always reading, but I was also social. I had a lot of great friends. I went to the local Catholic school, St. Thomas, and then from there went to Marie Regina in Uniondale.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed local for a while. I went to Hofstra University. But as a young person, I was always looking forward. When I was in grade school, I wanted to be in high school. When I was in high school, I wanted to be in college. When I was in college, I was like, itching to get out there and do my thing.
In what ways do you think your parents sort of cultivated leadership in you? You said they sort of always encouraged you to be a leader.
Yeah, yeah, so many different ways, Elayne. My parents were both entrepreneurs. My dad opened up his first dry cleaners in the late 50s, and he had a small chain of dry cleaners in Queens, Brooklyn. He also had a couple of restaurants, a small ice cream store, a few multifamily units. So he was a Renaissance man, and a serial entrepreneur. My mom was also, an entrepreneur. She was a special occasion seamstress. My mom was the woman that you went to when you wanted a special dress, whether it was a wedding gown or a prom dress. My mom was the one that you went to. She was incredibly talented, and the leadership that I saw in both of them in terms of, always choosing faith over fear, always doing the things that they felt were right for their family. It was amazing because they lived the lives that they were choosing to live. And, what is leadership if it's not, moving forward in the direction and following your own vision? And so I grew up, I was fortunate enough to watch that every day.
Do you feel like your parents were two of your greatest influences, or what were some of
Oh,
your others?
yeah, my parents were definitely great influences. And, I had a strong family unit. I mean, there were lawyers in my family and doctors in the family, and everybody had went through college. And, there were just so many strong women around me that I was able to watch and to observe, and who influenced me to be the best that I could be, and to go to college and get a good education. And I always felt like, doors were open for me, and that there wasn't anything that, I couldn't achieve. So my first influences, Elayne, really come from my family unit. There's no doubt about it. And then I think, as I got older and started getting out into the world, I started watching people. Oprah, right? Like who hasn't been influenced by one of the greatest entrepreneurs that's ever lived, is Oprah Winfrey. But inherently, I think the biggest influences were truly my family members and my parents.
So when you went to Hofstra, did you have an idea at that point that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or what did you study?
I was a communications major, and I studied journalism at Hofstra. And no, I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur. I was thinking about being a businesswoman. I wanted to, get out there and make money. I wanted to be the boss. And when I graduated, I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, and I started working in cable. And I was very fortunate because I was able to get promoted. And, I started as a manager, and then from manager, I went into director, and then from there to executive VP. And so I had many leadership positions, which I loved. And so that's really what I was doing for the major part of my career, was working in companies like USA Today and Comcast and America Online, and running large departments.
When did you get to the point that you decided, whether by necessity or just your own decision, that you wanted to strike out on your own as an entrepreneur?
Oh, such a great question. I had taken this very traditional route, which was, I think, what was expected and what I wanted to do in terms of leadership. But a few years ago, I just kind of started feeling like corporate was just not enough for me. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling satisfied. I wasn't finding any joy out of leading these departments anymore. And, the corporate culture can be very limiting, if you will. Like I was always like having to perform. If I had a bad day, nobody could know it because, I was a leader in this department and I had to make sure that I was always modeling the right behaviors. I was a woman of color and there weren't that many, in the field that I was in. And so I was always like on this stage, and I felt like I'd had enough and I wanted more freedom. I wanted to be able to do things my own way. And I decided, a couple of years ago that I was going to pursue entrepreneurship, open up my own business. And that's exactly what I did.
And how did you make that transition from working your full-time job, something that you've built up, or your career that you've built up over time, and then making that transition?
I wanted to get into executive coaching. In corporate, I really loved mentoring people. I loved working with people that wanted to do big things and that, really wanted to move forward, not just in their careers, but also in their lives. And so I decided to take a coach training program, which was a year long. It was a rigorous program, and I learned so much about myself. It was steeped in ontological coaching, which is the study of being. So it was more than just being a coach. It was really all about who you are and your survival mechanisms and the things that stop you in life, and being able to increase awareness around that so that you could move forward. And so once I graduated from that program, I started coaching, and I was still working in corporate, but I was doing my coaching on the side. And fortunately, my business was growing through referrals. And it was funny because, whenever I would make some money, from coaching, I was kind of like, oh, wow, okay, this is fun. I'm not sure, how serious it is because I loved it so much. And I hadn't yet made the connection of, wow, I'm passionate about this and I love doing this. And yes, I can actually make money. I can, create my own business. Like, it took a minute before I connected those two pieces. But once I did, I made the decision that I was going to leave corporate behind and start doing my own thing. And that's what I did.
I think that's so important to share this idea that, it doesn't always come to us right away, the thing that we're supposed to be doing next. It might not be forever, but at least the thing we're supposed to be doing next. But also that you started from a place of, this is something I love or something I'm passionate about or something that's fun, and then got to the point of discovering how it could become a business.
Yeah, that is so true. And, I think my mindset initially was that it had to be hard. There had to be struggle involved. Like, there was no way that you could be enjoying what you were doing and making money from it if you weren't like sweating and having stress related to it. And it's true. And once I got past that limited thinking and really started to open my mind up to, my days are filled with, the opportunity to speak to different women and, of course, a few good men as well, and to really change lives, to inspire people, to influence people, and to be a model of somebody who was in sort of a very restricted environment, within the corporate structure, and was sort of racked with, judgment and criticism and, always having to be the best and always having to be on that stage. And then transitioning to creating something where I was able to just be myself, and be really comfortable in my own skin and share my stories with others.
Is executive coaching still your primary focus as far as the clients that you have, or do you have a mixture of people who are looking for life coaching in general and then some executive coaching?
Yeah, I do have a mixture. That's exactly what it is. I talk to a lot of women who, much like myself, are ready for something else. They were looking for their what's next. And they just needed that push, or they needed like accountability structures put into place. And they needed to stretch. And also many women who were dealing with issues around self-doubt, imposter syndrome, dealing with these feelings of unworthiness, were coming to me. And, it's really been wonderful to have these conversations and, again, to change lives. But yeah, the bottom line is that I do work with women who are dealing with career transitions. But I also work with women who, are just working through some sort of change in their lives and need that partner to, help move them forward.
Excellent. Now, what's the name of the course that you took, the life coaching course? And I ask because it's interesting. I just had a listener the other day contact me and ask me about life coaching certifications and things like that. So I'm interested in the course that you took because it sounds very interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was called Accomplishment Coaching.
Is it in New York, or where is it? Is it an online course, or where do people, not that you're endorsing it, but just so people can research it?
Yeah, no, happy to. It was a great experience for me, and it was life-changing. They're headquartered in San Diego, but they have programs in New York, and they also have programs in Washington, D.C., and a few other places. I took the program in D.C.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So for everyone listening, I'll have a link to that as well on Denise's show notes page, of course, as well as ways to get in touch with her. But just so people can have an idea, because I think many are intrigued by life coaching, what it's about. I've been talking to a lot more women, of course, who are doing life coaching in different ways, like you, for example, who focuses on executive training or executive coaching, as well as lifestyle leadership coaching and that kind of thing. So it's always interesting to just hear how people gathered their experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And really it can be life changing. It can be transformational. And one of the things that I've found, from my experience with coaching is that I realized, quick story. I was working with a woman that she was one of my clients, and I coached her through one of the biggest negotiations of her career. And afterwards, what I realized, Elayne, was that high profile women like this need to be championed too. They need to be pushed. We often think of mentoring as an option when we first start in our career, but what about when you're in the peak phases of your career? That's when women really need the most support to bring their own legacy project to life.
Right.
And so I've really been working with a lot of women in that vein, and I created a program specifically for women who were working through that because there's a huge need. I mean, we think that, it's easy to be a boss, it's easy to be a leader, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of inward work that we need to do as women, and that when we do that, we just find so many opportunities and so many doors opening for us.
So tell us about your program and then your company, Real Life Leadership.
Yeah, sure. So the program that I developed is called Mission North Star. It's a 6-month accelerated coaching program, and it's actually for a small group of women. I think I've got a few spots available, but I'm doing it with just about six to 10 women. It's a signature program for my coaching company called Everything Emily. And we will take the next 6 months. It starts in March, and we meet every other week. There are 9 one-on-one sessions and then 3 mastermind sessions with the other women that are in the program. And as I said earlier, it's really about getting these women together and defining their purpose, really looking at what their core values are and getting clear on what their goals and intentions are about. And within that 6-month period of time, that's what we work on. The women that are enrolled in the program all have passion projects. One is looking to be an author. Another one is looking for major success. She's a realtor, and she's got her eye on reaching platinum status. And so, we are working towards some very specific goals, but I think the program really takes into mind inspiration, action, and momentum.
Talk to us a little bit about the power of masterminds. I've been in masterminds. I think they're fantastic. I have one online for the Support is Sexy mastermind and some private groups as well. So over the past couple of years, I personally have experienced their power, but talk to people a little bit who may not be familiar about what it's about.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love masterminds. I think that I have gained so much knowledge and so much strength from having conversations with other people, particularly entrepreneurs. Being in a mastermind is an opportunity to stretch your thinking. It is an opportunity to talk about new ideas and hear about what other people are working on, and really just let your thoughts out and share with a group of people that are all working towards something. And it's been just a wonderful opportunity for me. I find that, when I'm sitting in the mastermind, it's like, take a breath and become present. Mm-hmm. It's that time when the self-saboteurs, are gone. It's that time when the inner critic is not allowed to enter. And it's also that time when you start to look at what is your level of commitment to doing the things that you want to do. When you're sitting in a mastermind and you've got an accountability structure and, the team, the people that you're working with are like, well, hey, how did that project go? Or, did you get that goal accomplished? Where are you? What do you need? It's just, it's great support. And, I think for many people that want to get out and become an entrepreneur, want to get out there and do their own thing, being a part of a really strong mastermind it's a huge asset.
And I think it sounds like your program too is also not just the part of the getting together and, as you said, asking how things are going, which is certainly, accountability and part of it, but it sounds very goal oriented too, individually, for each individual.
Yeah, most definitely. It's very goal oriented, but I also try to work inward with these women. I try to really bring out that being because, most people, I like to relate to people as leaders. And if somebody's got a goal and they want to accomplish it, they can definitely do it. But the other portion of that, Elayne, is around what happens when you stop. What is stopping you that get in the way? What do you do when you don't know what to do anymore? And that's what this program really sort of helps to identify is what has been getting in the way. What do you need that you're not getting?
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I know you just mentioned it now, but you've also written about on your website is the inner critic, who you call Gabby, which I think is so funny. What's your advice for us for quieting the Gabby in our own heads?
I think the first thing is having an awareness around the idea that there is an inner critic, being aware that inner critic is coming in and trying to get you to stay comfortable. The inner critic wants you to not do anything that's going to make you uncomfortable. It wants you to just stay in your lane, if you will. And having an awareness around it, I think, is a huge move towards being able to quell it. And that's why I call it Gabby. Gabby is somebody who is, very staunch, very limited in her thinking, doesn't want to do anything that might cause any kind of anxiety, wants to just stay in her comfort lane, and that's it, and that's all. And so she visits whenever I'm going to do something big. Mm-hmm. If I'm going looking for sponsorship, if I am doing a big workshop, if I'm getting ready to speak in front of a large group, all of a sudden, Gabby's like there and she's like, what are you doing? Why? Why bother with this stuff? I mean, please, isn't what you're doing enough? Why do you always need more? And I'm able to say, you know what, Gabby? Bye. Out. Yeah, not today. And I think just having an awareness of it is really a big help in not letting your critic be the boss of you. There's a great book out there called Tame Your Gremlin. It's an awesome book. From that book, Elayne, I really started to identify and understand more about the inner critic.
Excellent. I'll look that up and make sure I link to that as well. Tame your gremlin. I like that. Your gremlin called Gabby. Gremlin.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think the last name of the author is Carson, but it's an awesome book. It's a good read.
All right, thank you. And I think, do you find that a couple of things about Gabby, the inner critic? One is that she's just trying to keep us safe, as you said, comfortable, not in a space of rejection, that kind of thing. I try to remind people of that when we get sort of frustrated with that inner critic or with just fear in general. And it's sort of like, no, that's the ego and all of those things trying to keep you safe. But you say, I know what I'm doing. As you said, goodbye, it's fine. And then you move forward, as opposed to some people, I believe, just want to get rid of that fear. But I think it's feeling it or saying, you know what, this is here and it's me, I'm afraid to do this thing. And I say sometimes when you're afraid, it's usually because it's something that really matters to you or you want to do well. And then you acknowledge it and sort of move on. As you said, just have an awareness that it's there.
Yeah. And, you make a really good point there, Elayne, too, because, at the end of the day, it's like fear is always going to be there with you. The idea around doing it anyway is what you have to keep first and foremost in your mind. Fear is never going to go away. I mean, it's just part of what you do when you take risks and when you do something that's different and something that, is outside of your comfort zone. But you can't let it be the boss of you. You just have to say, okay, I know you're here. And yeah, I'm afraid, but I'm doing it anyway.
Exactly. And I also say that with the inner critic, I did a podcast episode about this idea that the inner critic is the loudest voice usually, and the affirming voice is usually the small whisper. So I try to tell people, try to tap into the whisper, the one that's telling you, no, you can do this, keep trying, because the critic is usually loud and screaming and a lunatic, right? Yeah,
that is so very true. And, like I said, I'm an avid reader, so I'm always filled with, these books. And another one, and I think you might have mentioned it on one of your shows that I listened to, was Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yes.
And in that book, she does address, a lot of a lot of information around, fear and your inner critic and just the idea that, hey, don't let it be the driver. I mean, it can be in the back seat, but it can't be in the driver's seat.
Excellent. Another one of the things that you talk about, you bring to your clients is helping them get unstuck.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the tips for us to get unstuck when we're feeling that way? Well, first, why do some of us get stuck? I guess it would be for different reasons, but have you found some common reasons women get stuck? And then how do we get out of that?
Yeah. I think one of the most common things that I find with women in particular is really that self-doubt. Just being worried that they're not good enough, they don't know enough. And so they decide to stop. Fear, like we've talked about before, but also unworthiness. There's imposter syndrome, and I know you know what that's all about. And for listeners, the imposter syndrome is just around, saying to yourself, well, who am I to be a leader? Who am I to be this, this fabulous coach? Who am I to, get out there on my own and start my own business? And those are some of the things that, really stop women from moving forward. And I think another big thing too, Elayne, really is not trusting yourself. Not trusting yourself to take a risk. Not believing in yourself enough. But those are some of the big things that I deal with. And these are with, anyone. It can be somebody who is, a recent college grad all the way to, I've had clients who are CEOs, and have these issues and these thoughts that run through their heads.
And then how do we address those and get out of it?
One of the things that I have found that's worked is to celebrate your wins. Mm-hmm. Really stay focused on some of the great things that you've done. A long time ago, I used to get like letters from, employees or staff members, and they'd write these letters of, their experience with me. And, it was like, okay, I didn't know that I really could influence someone like that. And so whenever I would feel like uncertain or unsure, I'd go back and I'd start reading those letters. I'd start reading those testimonials on the impact that I, had on people. And I think with women in particular, it's kind of like the expectation is that, hey, you just got to do it anyway. And so you don't stop and really look at what you've been able to achieve. You just keep going at this pace that oftentimes isn't even sustainable, but you're going so fast that you don't recognize that, wow, I'm doing some really good work here. So I think that's one of the ways is to celebrate your wins. Another is to surround yourself with, like-minded people. Surround yourself with people who are encouraging you. I think it's Jim Rohn who says that, you're the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. Right. And I find that to be so, so very true. If you're with people that are kind of zapping your ideas and, not really encouraging you to move forward, then, it's not that you've got to find new friends, but you need to find some different friends. People that are doing big things and people that, want to see you succeed. Third thing is to start connecting with yourself. And when I say connect with yourself, spend time with you, go for long walks, meditate, try yoga, find a space where you can just kind of clear your head, but start connecting with the things that you like doing. The things that bring you joy, whether it's, being around loved ones or whether it's, dancing or painting, whatever it might be, connect with yourself. And those are ways that help you get past, those feelings of uncertainty or lacking confidence or feeling unworthy.
Excellent. So who would you say, Denise, for you is your support network?
I have a business partner. Her name is Sophia Casey, and she is a powerhouse. She's actually the chief operating officer for Real Life Leadership, and she's somebody who I work with every day, and we get together and we're talking about our pipeline and our next projects, and I think having that support system has just been such it's made a big difference in my life. And then, it's also, I work with I have a phenomenal coach that I work with as well, Julie Zuzak. And that's been a big help. I love working with my coach. I feel like that just sort of stretches me and helps me to stop playing small and to think big. And then, my circle of girlfriends, that are also doing big things that, hey, when I just feel like relaxing and having a nice glass of wine and taking it easy and not talking about business, they're there.
Excellent. And we love Julie Zuzak. I'll link to her episode, The Corporate Yogi.
Yeah, The Corporate Yogi. Exactly.
She's so great. I think that's how we were introduced, right? Through Julie?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, she told me that. Well, I had been listening to your podcast, and we just happened to be. Yeah. Oh yeah, love it. It's. Let me say that your podcast, I think, should be a prerequisite for every female entrepreneur out there, and of course, a few good men as well. I mean, it's absolutely awesome.
Oh my goodness,
Julie
thank you.
And I. Yeah, no, most definitely. Julie and I had been talking about a few different things, and I remembered a podcast that you had done, and I said, I got this tip from Elayne Fluker, and she was like, yeah, of course. And from there, it was just like, I gotta meet Elayne. I have to have a chat with her.
Yeah.
And now to know that you're not only my Long Island sister, but you grew up in Lakeview.
I know. It's so crazy. I cannot. Can you remember the last time you met someone from Lakeview? Not who just knew where it was, but actually from Lakeview.
No, I mean, people don't know about good old Lakeview, in Sunken City.
Yes, and the other side.
Exactly. So, yeah, there's definitely a connection. And that's how the universe works, Elayne. I
Yeah.
mean, you're doing good things and, you're doing the right things when, the right people just start coming into your path. So, yeah.
Amen to that. So, what would you say, Denise, entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Being an entrepreneur, for me, it's been a spiritual journey. It has taught me so much about accepting myself for who I am. As I said earlier, being okay with fear and doing it anyway. Learning to be aware when my inner critic decides to hang out and knowing what to do to get past that. I've learned that confidence in yourself is so important, and that the idea that you can declare and fulfill is just so real. So I think, bottom line, it's like for me as an entrepreneur, the biggest lesson has just been understanding that I am enough.
I am enough. Excellent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in closing, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Oh my God, it's a great question, but it's hard, just to zero in on one person. But I would say unequivocally, it is my mom. She has been like, my biggest cheerleader and fan. I mean, my mom, when I decided to become an entrepreneur, she was like, yeah, of course. Well, why wouldn't you be? Your father was one. Yeah, definitely. Like, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. And she's just led me to believe that, I can basically do anything from a very young age. And I know that her love is unconditional. And, whether I become a rock star, or not, I'm still that very important person to her that can do anything, that she has been encouraging and moving forward for my entire life. And she herself has been a model. I call her the CEO of my family.
The CEO of the family. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. She's from Puerto Rico. She's all of 5 feet tall, and she is a powerhouse. So, she's the one that I would thank for everything
I
and
love
for
it.
all that I am.
Excellent. So tell us now how we can support you, your website, social media, anything that you want us to know about. I'll have, as I mentioned, links to everything, but just so people can hear it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Elayne.
Yeah.
Life Leadership is a company that gets out there and does leadership development, training, and consulting. I started that company because I saw that there needed to be a change in leadership. And so we get out there and we really work with leaders to become much more resonant and much more conscientious. And so that's a great way to connect with me, is through Real Life Leadership. And then, of course, Everything Emily is EMILE. That is my coaching business. And I love working with women. I want to inspire possibility for women who are ready for a change in their lives. And, I want to be somebody that partners with them when they're looking for their what's next and ready to get clear on their purpose and live life with passion and on their own terms. So, hey, I'm available. I'm here for support.
Excellent. So Everything Emily is Everything Emily. So everything EMILE.com, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's the website is there a website for Real Life Leadership, or how can people find out more about that?
Yeah, Real Life Leadership. It's REALIFE. So just one L. Yeah, reallife-leadership.com.
Excellent. Great. And as I said, I'll have links to everything so people can find it. So thank you so much for being here today, Denise. I appreciate you. We got everything going, my fellow Lakeview girl.
Listen, it's been my pleasure, Elayne. Thank you. And keep doing what you're doing, because you're such an inspiration to all of the women out here that are, trying to become entrepreneurs and that are entrepreneurs. And your show has just made such a huge difference to all of us and to me in particular. So thank you. And hey, go Lakeview.
Go Lakeview. Thank you so much for saying that. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Wow. I think probably I want to say that know what you want and keep your eyes open for evidence of it. In the coaching world, we say declare and fulfill. Be intentional about living forward. Embrace every opportunity that comes your way. And like I said earlier, even if you're afraid, do it anyway. With clarity comes unstoppability.
Excellent. Denise, thank you so much. Hold on just a second.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode with Denise Harris. That was a lot of fun. For more information, to find the resources, for links how to get in touch with her, to visit her websites, go to supportissexypodcast.com. Just search Denise in the search bar and her show notes page will show up with all of that information there, all of the links that you need to find out more about the work that she's doing. Again, supportissexypodcast.com. And you know what? While you're there, make sure to go to the subscribe button as well and subscribe to our email list so you don't miss any of the great things that we have coming up in 2017. In addition to the podcast, of course, with all of our episodes 5 days a week with fabulous women entrepreneurs. But I really would love to be able to stay in touch with you. Now, we don't spam. We don't do that because I am very conscious of people's space in their inbox. So we don't do that. Only sending you stuff when I truly have something to say. So please go to supportissexypodcast.com, check out Denise, and be sure to subscribe to our email list so you can get information again about what's coming up this year, including exclusive events and other things that we have in the works for you. It's going to be a good year. All right. So thank you as always so much for listening. I appreciate you. And now you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.